Netflix just has to get their grubby hands into everything. And it's so absolutely frustrating. There's no denying that all you have to say is Netflix and anime property, and everybody suddenly is angry. And I will say, there's a side of me that's sort of frustrated by how people decide to report this recent announcement that came out today that yes, Netflix is on board with the live action of My Hero Academia. Now, I want to be perfectly clear, this is one of those things where I think people jump onto things and realize later on that they were wrong, but there's nothing here so far saying that Netflix is making a live action My Hero Academia despite certain websites want to claim. What we're getting here is, some people might not remember, but 4 years ago, there was an announcement for a live action My Hero Academia. Again, yes, it's been 4 years. A lot of people forgot that. And I think a lot of people were kind of hesitant with it just because it was announced as a, yes, Hollywood adaptation of an anime manga property. But the only thing that we really knew at that time was that Legendary was working on it. Yes, a Hollywood studio. And I think there was a side of a lot of people that as long as it's not Netflix touching it, it's fine. But still, most people were kind of like, nah, don't like it, don't want to have anything to do with it. But again, for those that don't remember, a year ago, it was announced that a very well-known Japanese director was going to be involved with it. And I think a lot of that uneasiness was sort of being subdued a little bit. At least we knew that a Japanese director who was very well known, did things like Kingdom, is going to be working on it. It's not going to be a Western director. And yes, this is Shinsuke Sato. And again, jump forward another year and suddenly out of nowhere, there's headlines everywhere saying Netflix is now adapting a live action of My Hero Academia. And I want to scream at the top of my lungs, no, it already existed. It's just now they're getting on board with it. Now they're going to at least be funding it. I haven't really got a clear answer on this quite yet, but a lot of headlines are either saying they're co-producing it, a lot of headlines are saying that they just got licenses so that they can distribute it, and then there's some other ones, like the ones that are actually linked on Legendary's website, that just say that it's going to be on their website. So it's raising a lot of question marks right now. So how involved is Netflix? Because honestly, from my perspective, I didn't mind that Legendary was working on it if anybody's going to work on it in the West, as long as Netflix not touching it. But again, like I said before, having Sato involved with it kind of made me believe that there's a possibility it might turn out decent. But I will agree with a lot of people, the moment that we see Netflix name suddenly pop up, there's a lot of fears because yes, Netflix screws up a lot of stuff and they have a lot of really bad live action adaptations. So the question then becomes, how involved is Netflix? We don't know quite yet. Yes, based on certain reportings of this, they're heavily involved because they're producers. So I think the best way that we can address this with so much misinformation jumping out there right now is to really look specifically at an article that was linked by Legendary themselves. And this was on The Hollywood Reporter. Netflix has nabbed the live-action film adaptation of manga sensation My Hero Academia from Legendary Entertainment, best known for its MonsterVerse tentpoles. Again, all it's saying is nabbed. Now, does this mean they bought the license from them? Or again, just streaming it? Joby Harold will be penning the screenplay for the live-action feature, which will be directed by executive producer Shinsuke Sato's English language debut, and we'll see the popular manga property jump to the live-action movie realm. Harold's credits include Obi-Wan Kenobi and Army of the Dead. This sort of has me a little concerned, the idea that they're 4 years after their licensing announcement, and finally they have a screenplay writer on board. Moving on though, Legendary's bought the rights to live-action adaptation My Hero Academia back in October of 2018. The adaptation will be produced by Legendary's Mary Parent and Alex Garcia and takes place in a world where 80% of people have developed powers called quirks. And this article ends with them talking about there's no word on casting for the live action, so again, we're seemingly very early stages with this whole thing. Now, that's where I have my concern. Like I said before, nothing here indicates that Netflix themselves is making it. This isn't Death Note or something like that. What this sort of tells me is that, yes, this was licensed way back in 2018, and then 3 years later, they finally got a director on board with it, which again, is a director that I'm not against. Sato seems like he has a really solid line behind him in Japanese live action. There's a concern here that he's now going to be doing a directing for a live action in Hollywood, like him now having to work with Hollywood rather than a studio in Japan. But again, because now we're finally getting people on board for writing and everything, there's a concern there that Netflix is going to start getting their hands in there. And yes, Netflix can be completely hands-off. That's the hope. because we don't want Netflix touching things. They screw things up really badly. There's a hope that they'll just let them do their thing. That Legendary and everybody will be able to do the work they're doing, and it will be completed, and we'll see if it works out or not. Legendary is not a terrible group. I've enjoyed several things from Legendary. Now, granted, I don't have any reference whatsoever to Joby Harold. I really don't know how good he is at what he does. He could be a good writer. I don't know. It seems like everybody, or at least are trying to point out that Obi-Wan Kenobi was a good film or miniseries. His credits list Obi-Wan Kenobi, Awake, King Arthur, The Legend of the Sword, Army of the Dead, and Transformers Rise of the Beast. So, again, I haven't watched any of those, so you guys have to tell me if they're good wrote or not. But again, I think my main key thing about making this video is I really do want people to be clarified in the idea that a lot of these articles, and yes, a lot of tweets and everything, are really trying to push that this is a new announcement, that it was never announced before, and that Netflix is fully in charge of it. And we don't really know that quite yet. Again, based on The Hollywood Reporter, which again was linked by Legendary, who owns the license to My Hero Academia for the live action, they're posting an article that just basically says that Netflix has got it. Either they're going to be streaming it. How involved they're going to be is the big question mark. And again, the thing that's going to tell this is probably going to flop or not. I think either way it's going to flop because it's going to be Western produced. But again, I think the fact that Sato's involved, a Japanese director that has done some good stuff in the past, raises my hope quite a bit. So I'm not going to throw this out completely right now. I'm not super angry quite yet. Yes, would I love Netflix to just keep their hands off of everything? Yes. But is Netflix going to just stop touching this stuff? I don't think so. They rely on the fact that this has a pre-established fandom, and it's an easy way to pull people in to sub to their network without having to say, well, we're making our own thing. Here's what it's called. It's never been seen before. Please come sub. That's much more difficult to draw in people. Having a pre-established franchise, even if people know it's going to stink, is still going to draw in people. So that's the unfortunate thing. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment, let me know what you think about this whole situation. You like, just don't touch it at all. Did you hear something more than I heard? Again, it seems like every single article is titling it different. Whether it be Netflix is now making a new thing. No, Netflix is co-producing. No, Netflix just is streaming it. It's just all over the place. And I'm sure we'll probably get some clarification, hopefully, eventually. Who knows? Maybe Netflix will just let it sit so that the whole thing just melts down and then... Bad press is good press, right? Anyhow, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list if it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody it does, and y'all take care.